Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel, or welcome to the channel. This could be your first time here. I am your host, Davin James, and if you enjoy today's episode, please remember to like, subscribe and comment, and also hit that bell for notifications. That's the most important part. And today, I'm back with another true crime story. I've been doing a lot of true crime stories as of late, some breaks here and there, but nonetheless I seem to do a lot of true crime stories. Today's episode involves a man whose name is Armando Albino. I couldn't get that last. But basically, the story follows him when he was 6 years old. And him and his brother, who was then 10 at the time I believe, were in a public park in Oakland, California. Lewis was unfortunately kidnapped. And despite loads of efforts, through the police and whatnot, he was never actually found. Until 73 years later, where his niece did a DNA test online just for fun, and it turned out she had a 22% match with a man who turned out to be her uncle. So thanks to his niece, he was eventually found years later. Incredible story. But with that being said, let's get on with today's episode. Man who was abducted at 6 years old found alive 73 years later thanks to niece who never gave up hope. Strap yourselves in, because this sounds like a wild ass story. I mean, get abducted at 6 years old, and then later on, 73 years later, you're finally being found. What the fuck? This is a interesting story by the sounds of things, and I can't wait to dive more into this. Armando Albino, I hope I got her last name right, Albino, was reunited with his biological family more than 7 decades after he was abducted. A woman incredibly helped solve the abduction of her long-lost uncle, a woman 73 years after he was taken from a park as a child. Armando Albino, or Albino, again, I apologize if I got that bit wrong, who's 79, has finally been reunited with his biological family thanks to his niece's hard work, which proved critical in solving the 7-decade mystery of what actually had happened to him. In 1951, he was playing in Jefferson Square Park with his brother Roger, who was 10 at the time, in West Oakland, California, when a woman approached the young boy and lured him into her clutches by promising him to buy sweets. Then, the 6-year-old Lewis was then flown across the country to New York, where he was raised by a local couple as though he was their own son, while his real family were left without any real answers. So some of my questions during this point are, where were the family at this moment in time when they were in the park with him? Why weren't they close by? That's some of my questions. I'm not blaming the family by any means. But when it comes to these sort of stories, you're obviously going to have many questions going through your head. And this is one of my particular questions. Why didn't anyone else report anything? Because surely there's probably more people in that park. I don't know anything about this park, because obviously I don't live in America. But surely somebody must have saw something that didn't seem quite right. I know it's kind of hard when you're in a park because there's little loads going on, you're focused on your own kids, you're focusing on whatever it is you're doing, whether it be running, jogging, whatever. And sometimes kids can pick up a fuss, okay, it's time to go now, we need to go home. And they can pick up a bit of a fuss, no, I don't want to go, blah blah blah, and they start crying. So maybe that didn't seem quite out of the ordinary if something like that happened to him, I don't know. I'm just going off my own little speculation right here. Seeing as we got a Netflix ad on the bottom of the screen here, I feel like this is a story for Netflix in some capacity or another. This is a real interesting story. Lewis's mother never gave up hope that he would return, but unfortunately she passed away in 2005 at the age of 92, without ever finding out his fate. Man, that's tragic as fuck. That's really upsetting. Never giving up hope, because why would you? That's your son, that's your child. Why would you give up hope? I don't have kids of my own, but I have a big family. And I have a bunch of nieces and nephews. And if something like that was to ever happen to them, I don't know how I would feel knowing that their fate was discovered, but years later, after I was gone. I don't know how I would feel about that, even though it's kind of unrealistic to think about it that way, because you're dead, but I hope you get what I mean. Sense of that, what you will. But thankfully, it seems the determination to uncover what transpired that following fateful day in the park runs in the family, as Lewis's niece, Ada Alda Alquin, decided to get on the case. I also apologise if I got her name wrong as well. And thank God she did, as Oakland police say she played an integral role in finding her uncle. The 63-year-old remained in the US city to work alongside the force, as well as the FBI and the Department of Justice, to piece together what occurred after the woman lured Lewis away. Cops, soldiers, and the Coast Guard were called in to assist with search efforts surrounding the San Francisco Bay, as the alarm was raised about the abduction of the little boy, but they found no trace of him. Instead, they hoped his sibling Roger could provide some clues. And that's interesting as well. Why didn't they take Roger? The 10-year-old was questioned on several occasions, and each time he recited the same story, explaining that a woman with a bandana wrapped around her head had approached them before making off with Lewis. Then the case eventually went cold. Alda explained her grandmother would attend the police's missing person bureau on a daily basis in the hopes of an update on her son, but eventually this turned into weekly, monthly, and then annual visits. She always felt he was alive, she told Mercury News. She took that with her to her grave. All this time the family kept thinking of him. I always knew I had an uncle. We spoke of him a lot. My grandmother carries the original article in her wallet, and she always talked about him, Ada added. A picture of him was always hung in the family home, which I assume is this photo right here, which we also previously saw early on in the article. In 2022, Alda ended up setting off a chain of events which would finally bring Lewis back home. She decided to take an online DNA test for fun, and results informed her that she had a 22% match with a man who later turned out to be her missing uncle. In touch with him, she didn't receive a response, and it was only earlier this year that she again decided to delve deeper into Lewis's kidnapping again with her own daughters. Her children looked up their missing relative's name online and then found pictures of him on microfilm at the Oakland Public Library, which they believed confirmed the fact that he was still alive. They took the findings to the FBI and the Department of Justice, which opened up a new persons case. Lewis was then tracked down on the East Coast and provided a DNA sample, which confirmed his identity before officials visited his mother's home to inform the family that Lewis had finally been found. Lewis on the right was finally reunited with his brother Roger after whooping 73 years, says his niece. In my heart, I knew it was him, and when I got the combination, I let out a big yes. Alda beamed. We didn't start crying until after the investigators left. I grabbed my mum's hand and said, "We found him." I was ecstatic. Although this development meant the missing person case would be closed, or could be closed, the FBI said the investigation into Lewis' abduction remains open, despite the fact the couple he was raised by have since passed away. In New York, After being brought up in New York, Lewis went on to become a firefighter as well as serving in the Marine Corps, while also becoming a father and grandfather himself. Good on him. Much to Alda's joy, her long-lost uncle was finally able to reunite with his brother Roger, who is now 83, in August this year. Happy late birthday to him. But it was bittersweet as Lewis's sibling had been diagnosed with cancer and passed away just 1 month later. Oh man. Oh, that sucks. That really does suck. Speaking of Lewis's reaction when they met for the first time, Elena said he hugged her, gave her a kiss on the cheek, and emotionally said, "Thank you for finding me. I'm so happy I was able to do this for my mom and my uncle," she added. It was a big happy ending. I was always determined to find him. And who knows, with my story out there, it could help other families. Absolutely. Going through the same thing, I would say, don't give up. And that's exactly right. You know, your story can inspire someone else's story. And first of all, I just want to say I'm extremely glad that Lewis and his family are happy and that he's got to live a good life despite the circumstances of his life, you know, being kidnapped and never actually knowing his true family until years and years later. But he's lived a good life, you know, working in the Marines and then becoming a firefighter. That's really cool stuff. Becoming a father and then a grandfather. Again, really great stuff. Despite the circumstances, sort of thing. But I also want to say, I completely agree that, you know, this story could also help someone else as well who might be going through something similar. And I think that's one of the best things about these stories, that they get out there, that they get some attention out there, and they make the news rounds, if you will, and then other people from all over the world can find something like this, can find a story like this and help motivate them and help never give up hope, if you want to say it like that, if that makes sense. By the way, like I said, I think this was a good story. I think this was an interesting story, and this would be the kind of story I would love to see get more attention. But overall, what do you think of the story? Let me know your thoughts down below. Let me know your feelings down below. And until next time, take care, stay safe, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye bye for now.